Just out here saving lives with my plastering and rendering work. Right, okay, so maybe the title was a little OTT, over the top, but hear me out and watch this video to explain. This job needed the render chipped off, rightly so, as it was in very, very bad condition, and even worse condition once you see the underneath, how dangerous it actually was. So the render needed all stripped back to the brick. The brick needed cleaned down, brushed down, and they needed scudded and scratched and then rubbed up smooth again. But there was a long, long way to go, as this job, when you strip off render and you have something like that, that's what you would call a complete disaster. A bit of a fail, but you never know what's going to be under the render until you actually take it all off. And I certainly did not think there would not be some sort of head here. I thought there might have been maybe even like a proper piece of timber that's maybe salvageable. I never did think that it would just be a bit of rotted ply that was a complete disaster, as once the render was stripped off, the cement render was stripped off, all the bricks came off with it above the heads. Bit of a collapse. And I know the title suggests that, saving lives, but you never do know when that would have completely collapsed on its own. It could have been this winter, it could have been with a bit of ice, and somebody could have been out at that door. They could have closed the door hard, the wind could have blew the door, and all the bricks, probably half a ton of weight, would be down on top of you. So you actually don't know the moment that something like that could fail. Could be any stage. So yes, disaster for me, but at least that the homeowner wanted this redone and had the right person at the right time doing the right job. Absolute disaster, but great. It's just a challenge, and who doesn't love a good challenge? And the whole idea would be now reevaluate the job. We're going to need some concrete heads, maybe some concrete brick or block, and rebuild this up nice and strong again. So yes, disaster, but great. Let's get it done. Let's get it done right, and then we can carry on with all the plastering stages. There's the support, and doesn't even go right over to the brick, just ply. Don't know what's in on there behind or anything, but kind of means all them bricks are floating. So if I take a fender off, some of them might all drop in, especially because it's not even arched. I was hoping to see a bit of an arch there when I seen the wood, so that I know the bricks are pinched in. So I might have to get a lintel here. And obviously, if I knew a bricklayer, need to get a bricklayer on board, fix up these things. Here we are, first head in. It's a wee bit up and down, as it was quite a pinch to get it into the left. I didn't want to disturb too much bricks, as the bricks were just floating by magic. So the plasterer's going to have to deal with that one. And the bricklayer's now plastering again. So here I am, scud coating this back skin of brick, and you might ask yourself, why, what's the point? It's going to be hidden. But this is even known by structural engineers, that scud coat will tighten up any loose bricks. So I'm just trying to make sure that it's as strong as it can be, And I myself have seen this on non-load burn walls where they're all wobbly, and after a scud coat they're absolutely solid the next day. So to me this is just buckles and braces here. Complete overkill, I know, but I'd rather do the thing overkill than under. And here we are. We quick look at it. Still some stuff still floating, but we'll soon get this next head built in. Yeah, the head's built in, and all the bricks all rebuilt, and a few concrete brick as well. And still a massive mess here to do. Obviously would have had that more cleaned up if I didn't open up a can of worms above that door there with the invisible head. So another day and another job. So what I need to get done now is all the scudding and scratching. Again, this scudding is going to completely strengthen up the wall, and it's going to give me good key and help control suction in later coats. So just starting at the top, always sort of work left to right, but work left to right here, keeping the dashing in front of me obviously, so I can always see if I missed a bit. Everything's still in front of me. Trying to pick off any of that old growth. Was quite a lot of like roots growing in through some of the brick and stuff as well. Obviously there's been weeds on top of the wall and maybe like ivy or some kind of like climbing plant that has been climbing all over the top of this wall at some stage or another, which also wouldn't have helped the render. Obviously stuff growing in behind it and in amongst the joints of the bricks would not help the render, would blow it off. But again, back to the scud coat here. I have lots of videos on scud coat on the channel. Plenty of mixing videos, ratios, everything on scud coating can be seen on the channel. But yeah, going to concentrate, get this whole wall scudded, and then I'll be moving on to the scratch coating. Again, had another absolute nightmare disaster. But I'll show you that. I'll talk about that later on in the video and show you what that was and how I overcame that issue somewhat anyway. But yeah, so get your wall brush down, give it a wee light wash as well if you can with the hose, and then get your scud coat done, and then you'll be all set up for your scratch coating. So the safety glasses did their job today. It would have been pretty much in the eye. On to the scratch coat now, and again just sort of trying to fill out all the heavies as best as possible. Ideally you would want to coat this whole wall and definitely throw a straight edge over, and if there's any sort of high bits that you cut them back off, just to make life that bit easier when it comes to your top coat, your finishing coat, your float coat. But yeah, and just have to get it out, putting it on quite heavy, getting it out as much as I possibly can. What I'm doing here around this door, you can see some green there, that's actually some mesh, and I've decided it's basically like large scrim tape, but it is designed for exteriors. I've decided to do all around this whole door, to do the reveals and like do out probably about 20 inches around the whole sides, as to me this is where it all was cracked originally. And obviously when we chipped off all the old render, we were able to see why it was cracked, because behind it was moving. So if behind your render moves, your render's certainly going to crack. So my plan here is to strengthen up all these problem areas. Took quite a lot of mesh actually to do the reveals and right round, and I want to also do above the head. And there's one big section to my right. it was actually just really, really heavy and sunk in. So almost like a lot of the face of the brick came off with them ones. So I also wanted to mesh that. Again, we've had lots of debates on the channel about that type of stuff. To me, this is ideal for it, where you're just trying to really structurally make it stronger and more sound. The scud coat obviously is going to do that, but this mesh here, this is, again, it's a wee bit buckles and braces. It's completely overkill at this stage. But yeah, the discussions on the channel was, if it was going to crack through that mesh, it might be a harder repair if the mesh kind of like bubbles and knocks out larger areas. For example, I remember pricing a house, and the house had all like really like layers and layers of paint on this brick, and the homeowner wanted it all pebble dashed. But the idea was all that paint. To me, the paint needed to come off, so you're attaching to the brick, similar to what way I'm actually plastering this wall was my idea of going over that wall. But obviously I didn't get the job. Somebody else got the job, and their idea was that they just nailed on metal lath, basically metal sheets of mesh that is all now boast, believe it or not, and it's all just sitting slabs. So whenever the fixings go, all that render's gonna just collapse and fall off and be very, very dangerous, because parts of it are going to fall off in like 8x4 sheets basically. So not good. But yeah, so again, the repair on that would be, it's all going to need to come off. But like I was saying, more with this kind of sort of mesh, the repair would be, if it did crack, it could pop off quite a large bit. And if you didn't know when you started poking at it, before you maybe not run a grinder up and down, if you were a wee bit inexperienced and didn't decide to run a grinder up and down first, then you might come into a bit more of a bigger repair job on that. So you're kind of going to want to think about the job at hand before you just start doing things to it. But yeah, here I am now, sticking on the mesh, getting it well embedded. I like to put a wee coat on first, and then embed the mesh, and then put another wee lick over it, so that the scratcher, the scarifier, will make a nice key for my top coat. Something so therapeutic about scratch coating sometimes, and just relaxing. So the can of worms that is presenting itself on the next day is already sort of showing itself a little bit today, as on this mix, the mixer sort of somewhat jammed and wouldn't turn, and it needed just give it a wee sort of manual turn, and it spun. If you listen closely, you can kind of hear it in the background there. The mixer just sounds a wee bit off to me. Right, so we'll put the batten on. It's pretty easy, this one, because I've got something to work off there and something to work off there, so it doesn't matter tacking it on. You can run it through there, but we're sort of keeping access there. So usually I do the reveals first, but that head needed scratched again. It was a bit heavy, so I had to put another recoat on that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a rule, nice and maybe not too snug, but snug enough, and then I'll cut 2 rules to go up and down here. Again, there will be a bit of a bell cast here. It won't be just as thick as that. Probably out on that halfway, and then so I can put my rule out. It might be a wee bit over the rule here because of the bell cast, but that's okay, we can clean that up. But basically then, just going to level off these. You can also measure out, so say that's whatever that is, say that's 15 inches, 15 inches, 15 inches, and that's how you'll get the margin nice and straight. But I'm not sure if that old frame is actually plumb. Bit of the mesh sticking out there. But so basically, yes, I'm going to cut this head and then I'll nail them two up, and hopefully that'll wedge the head. If I need to put a wee wedge across the middle just to hold it, I will. And then I'm going to let everything set on the face, and then I'll return and come do the outside bits after. So here we are, guys. That'll be last wedged up tight with these two, and they're tacked in. Sometimes if you have a button, you can put a screw or a wee nail into those. Can be a bit of a nightmare taking it out again when you're stripping everything, but it'll not be too bad. Maybe put a block of wood on, get a bit more leverage. But as you can see, there's going to be a bit of a gap here, but I knew that because them corners were so heavy. If you remember back on the previous videos, that whole corner, all them bricks fell out and all these bricks fell out, so getting a scud and a scratch on that in a day, that's pretty tidy. I could have did tidier, but it kind of ran out of stuff and time. Like there, I had to build that out again a bit. But that's me all set up. These rails actually came out pretty heavy to that, so that's looking good. But now I have to just get it all coated. Swear guys, if I had no bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. The drum of the mixer came off as it was sticking. So I ran, got the backup, which is pretty bad, and it drum's sticking, the belt's not gripping, and it's too stiff, so it won't turn. So I'm now on to mixing with the Ruby mixer, and I think the problem with this is, if you look at that capacitor, it's goosed. So it's nearly 20 years old, this thing, believe it or not. But this is how I'm getting on with the wall. That happened when I had that part on. Just straightened it now, and then I'm gonna get the rest on. But yeah, if I had no bad luck, I would have no luck at all. Yeah. So back at it, guys. Absolutely hammered with rain there. You can see at the top we're very wet now. So, yeah. Sun's out now, so try and get this whole wall on. So this day has done nothing but fight me. Absolutely fighting against it here, against weather. It looks lovely and clear and sunny now, but when that rain was coming down, it was coming down hard and fast. So trying to get a mixer done, lost about an hour of time messing about there. Had to settle for the mixing drill, which is mixing about half of a wheelbarrow each mix, which is good. Would that Ruby mixer mix a full barrel? Absolutely, but I didn't want to burn it out, as then I'd have to get another mixer and another mixing drill out of the van and possibly burn that out too. Do have a refining mega mixer there, and then a wee cheap backup from Lidl, but again I'd rather not burn drills out. Also had the battery power drill, but I wouldn't entertain mixing more than a small yellow bucket with that. Otherwise you're just risking burning the things out, overworking them, and then you're in trouble then. Again, that mixer there, you know, it breaking was a bit of a, there was a sign the day before, should have maybe had a wee look around and seen what caused the jam. I just thought it was maybe a belt slipping or something. But yeah, that mixer, for being so old, is in pretty good condition. I have looked after it. Has been stored outside a wee bit as well. But if you looked at the drum there, it's pretty clean. Actually only one dent in it. That happened on the site, the house that we're building. So not by me. I'm not sure who caused that dent, but it is what it is. It's there now. Again, just have to deal with it and push on with the weather. The idea is to get this render on as quick as possible before any more big showers hit. The wall was quite wet, as the day previous did nothing but rain, so this wall was already lovely and wet for me coming, which meant great. It's not gonna suck in too quick. It's not gonna pull in too fast. And the weather forecast was given good. It said 2 light showers, which more like 22 showers we got, and some of them not light. You couldn't have stood in them or you would have been absolutely soaked. But pushing on here, as some would say, fortune favours the brave. And with that being said, it's just a matter of getting it on, getting it straight, using the Refina scarifier here. Sorry, the Refina serrated edge. I used a scarifier previous on the scratch coat, but using that to leave the render open. And I'm going to do a few more wee tips and tricks for you later on to show another wee way I sort of get the wall flat but also help it dry out some. That'll just be a wee bit later on here, and it may come in handy for you down the line. So the end is in sight when you're rubbing up. Obviously it was a long time to get to this stage, but just quickly want to show you a wee tip that I do to sort of rub it and help it dry at the same time here. So the first half of the wall set there, if you look over there, it's all finished on that end, but that was before. Oh, it's actually pulled in nicely up here. I'm going to hit it all just quickly. This is all a wee bit wetter, so I'm going to hit it all quickly with the float with the nails in it. Get it closed in a wee bit, very wet in places. And then I'll go back and rub it and sponge it properly. I believe that rubbing it with the float with the nails in it does help it dry that wee bit, but also gets it a bit smoother, so it will help you. Also just wanted to show this part, guys, is that don't be afraid to use your straight edge again. Just because you're at the rubbing up stage doesn't mean that everything's absolutely perfect to be rubbed up, and if there is holes like that, you can fill them back in and straighten it off. And also if you feel any big lumps and bumps on the wall, you can also hit them a quick straighten. It's really nice to be at this stage, quite tired and exhausted after these few hard days, but it's all going to be worth it in the end. You step back and look at the job, and I will do a wee quick before and after at the end here as well, just to see how far this job has came along from what it was. But yeah, again, plenty of rendering videos on the channel dedicated even more in detail to finishing render, to rubbing them up, sponging them, straightening them, coating them, scratching them, scudding them, you name it. It's all on the channel. It's all free. Would be brilliant if you did subscribe, because then you wouldn't miss out on any more future upcoming tutorials or how-to videos. I do like trying to get as much detail into each and every video as I possibly can. It is very hard to always get all the detail. Sometimes when you're recording or when you're actually working, you miss bits or you forget bits, or when you're adding, you forget to say certain things, or you run out of time saying certain things. Again, this has been quite a long video, and I hope you have been enjoying it. But it's long because there's so much processes, so much stages on this wall alone. Again, like I said, everything against me. If you just look up, look how grey the clouds are, just ready for another shower. It's like a day of completely two different weathers, complete raining and then complete sun shining. This wall is both being soaked and drying out quickly at all at the same time, which is crazy and hard to finish. But again, I like rubbing up from left to right, something I always ask people is, when they do say why do you coat left to right, and most plasterers I know in person, that's sort of the method they go. Have had a few people on YouTube tell me they coat the same as myself. Very recently actually somebody did comment that. Again, personally, doesn't really matter too much if you start on the left, you start on the right. And then it's starting to rain here. But what I always wonder is, you know, if you start on the right, surely you must rub it right to left then. But maybe not. I don't know. Maybe you still rub it left to right. Again, it always makes me wonder, how do they dash if they coat left? If they don't coat left to right, do they dash? Like, it would be completely weird dashing from one side to the other, in my opinion. But yeah, what did you think of this video, guys? What did you think of the methods that I chose? And what did you think of the obstacles that I faced on this job? Would you have stuck it out, or would you have took a day or two off, or would you persevered? So that's all this rubbed up and finished. Gonna give this over the weekend. Strip them off. You can tack them on the face and then just fill the nail holes, or you can hold them up and coat it, straighten it, take it away, put it back up, rub it, sponge it, and same as the top, but the top's easier if you just tack it. So if you put your rule on across and you tack it either side, it did cheat a wee bit, have a bead on at the back there, so it did cheat there, but only because you wouldn't really be able to put anything there really to hold. Maybe could have wedged something in right enough, but yeah, simple enough. Do prefer to do it all same day, so it's easier closed in the joint, but just the way this day went, it wasn't going to be an option. But this is the way to go about putting these rules on. Again, plumb them up right round. You can margin them as well, especially if your door frame's level. The top, if you plumb that, margin that, and then plumb it the same, the head's just, as long as it's a straight piece of timber, it's just point to point. Actually did move in a wee tiny bit on me, but that's okay. Again, it's simple enough setup, and it's plumb this way. You don't need to worry about that way, because when you come round, you're working off a flat edge and you plumb it that way, so you get it plumb both directions from doing it that road. But that's it for the day. I'm gonna hit the road now.